Every single day you go online, it feels like there's this massive battle raging between men and women. But what if that whole conflict is a complete myth? What if it's all just a show? Today, we're going to break down a really provocative argument that says the gender war isn't real, and the actual fight is happening somewhere else entirely. So here's our roadmap. First, we're going to look at this idea of a staged conflict, the one we all see playing out online. Then we're going to follow the money, because it always comes down to money, right? That's chaos for profit. Next, we'll get into the so-called elite's double standard. From there, we'll explore a pretty surprising way to resist this whole system. And finally, we'll talk about who the real enemy is, according to this source. All right, let's dive into section 1. We're heading to a battlefield we all know a little too well, the internet. The argument here is that all the hostility you see online between men and women isn't an accident. It's the opening act of a carefully staged play. So on one side of this supposed conflict, you get stuff like this. The source we're looking at links these kinds of extreme statements to movements like the red pill. The argument is that they take the actions of a few and then unfairly paint all women with that same brush. And on the flip side, you get the equal and opposite reaction. The source connects this kind of thing to some feminist arguments, saying it does the exact same thing. It equates all men with the absolute worst of the worst. It just creates this endless, vicious cycle of hate. Okay, so you've got these two sides clashing, but this is where the whole argument pivots. The source asks us to just step back for a second from all the online shouting and ask a really critical question. What if this entire war is just a big distraction? What if it's designed to keep our eyes off of something else? And there it is, the core idea. The author is basically saying that this whole men versus women thing is a smokescreen. It's there to hide a much older, much more real fight. A war of class between the powerful and the rest of us. So, if the gender war is a distraction for a class war, you have to ask, why? What's the motive? Well, Section 2 argues that this manufactured chaos isn't just about control, it's about profit. The answer, like it so often is all about the money. Now, to really get the economic argument, we have to understand the language the source uses. It frames society in these really stark terms. At the very top, you have a tiny elite group it calls the lords. And then you have everybody else, the massive working class, which it calls the peasants. Okay, now this slide lays out the playbook, and it is a wild chain of logic. According to the source, it all starts with step 1, promote promiscuity to weaken the family. That leads to step 2, the whole social order starts to break down. Then comes the crucial part. Step 3, this chaos supposedly creates a workforce with no support system, people who are more willing to work for cheaper wages. And all of this funnels into the final goal, step 4, it fuels a gigantic cycle of consumer spending. And this table right here illustrates that final point perfectly. The source is basically claiming that stable, married people are bad for business. A married woman, it argues, isn't buying as many shoes or bags. But single people? Oh, they're perfect consumers, constantly spending on dates, on cars, on clothes, on this endless treadmill of products to try and find a partner. Following the money trail leads us right to the heart of the source's main accusation, a massive hypocrisy. The argument is that these lords push one kind of lifestyle for the masses, for the peasants, but live by a completely different set of rules themselves. I mean, just look at this comparison. It's like a tale of two realities. The source claims the elite sell promiscuity to the working class as liberation. But for themselves? Oh no. They prefer chaste partners and super stable, traditional families. Why? To protect their own generational wealth and power. It's a huge, glaring contrast. The source really doubles down on this, framing the elite mindset almost like a conqueror's creed. The unwritten rules are something like this. Our neighborhoods should be safe. Yours should be dangerous. Our women should be pure. Yours should be promiscuous. Our families should be stable, while you shouldn't even have one. It's pretty intense. So you hear all that, and you think, okay, how could anyone possibly resist a system that powerful? Well, the source suggests a really surprising, almost countercultural solution. It's a rebellion fought not with weapons, but with morality and faith. And here's the core of that idea. If you stick to a strong personal moral code, you just become less controllable. You're a bad customer for the system they're selling.
If you're not driven by endless consumerism and instant gratification, it's a lot harder for them to manipulate you. A moral person, the argument goes, just can't be exploited as easily.
To back this up, the source points to this specific verse from the Quran. Now, its interpretation is what's key here. It's not just about religious belief in a vacuum. It's about choosing a principled path over the flashy, alluring, but ultimately destructive lifestyle that's being pushed by the unbelieving elite, the ones who are trying to lead you into chaos for their own benefit.
And that brings us to the final, powerful conclusion of this whole argument. This is where everything gets reframed one last time.
So here it is, the ultimate takeaway. The gender war is a fabrication, a ghost. The source argues men and women are not enemies, they are natural partners. The real war, the one we're all being distracted from, is the war being waged by a powerful elite against every single ordinary person, man or woman. And to really hammer home this idea of partnership, the source points out how deeply invested men are in the well-being of women, not just on a personal level, as mothers, daughters, partners, but on a societal one. It argues that it's men who build and run the infrastructure that keeps everyone safe, the power plants, the water systems, the entire food industry. In this view, they're not adversaries, they're foundational allies. So we end with the one big question that this whole argument forces us to confront. Are men and women really fighting each other, or are they just being tricked into fighting the same exact battle, just on different fronts, while the real enemy watches from above? It's a powerful idea and definitely something to think about.